Thank you. So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. And today is, what is today? August the 1st, and it's Tuesday. And our calling number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and questions, because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael a moment to dial in. Oh, I just found my headset down on the floor. I'll plug it in a moment. So tomorrow we're going to be playing, over the last month and a half or whatever, we've played a chapter of the Why book being read to you. And so we're up to the 4th hour of the book being read. So that'll be played tomorrow. Michael has an appointment, and I'm taking Aria to the zoo. So anyway, we hope you'll enjoy that reading. And I don't see her number on the switchboard yet, but, oh, there it is. I believe that this is Miss Julia, 360. You are on the air. How are you doing, young lady?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I am doing well. Let me make sure Michael knows that you are on first. Hold on a second. Okay, he is still dialing in, so he'll be with us in just a minute. Thank you for calling back today, because I don't know if you heard us at the end of the show yesterday. We said, when he said, well, let's finish it tomorrow or Wednesday, and I was like, no, we're not. We're going to play a recording on Wednesday, but I wasn't sure if you heard.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, because I was
so it
going
worked
to
out
go to work today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that worked out. Michael, there he is. Michael, Julie is already on.
Awesome. Welcome, young lady. Glad you could make it today.
Me too. All the synchronicity that happened about me not going to work today. I just woke up in the middle of the night saying, yeah, I'm not feeling going to work tomorrow. And then I was like, okay, well, let's just rest on that. And then I woke up. I have to get up at 3:30 to go to work because I have a 3-hour travel to get to work. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that today. So
3 hours one way or a round trip?
Yeah.
That's crazy, girlfriend.
One way. I know I have like an hour and 15-minute drive, and then it's an hour something ferry ride. So I go to a small island, and it's a very beautiful drive and a very beautiful ferry ride and a very beautiful island. So, and I get to listen to podcasts and stuff the whole time. So I enjoy it, and I only do it like once a week. So.
Very cool.
Jeanie told me that you're going to do a recording tomorrow, so that's perfect. We've all lined up.
Sweet. Well, how are you doing?
Yeah.
How is what we did yesterday? It was kind of a quick shot, but...
Yeah, so yesterday I didn't finish it, and I just read some more in the book, and I printed out some more forms and filled up my binder some more, and I read some more about Dr. Hayes has done these, like the mental short version of the reality management worksheet and the forgiveness pattern worksheet. So just reading through that stuff, and yeah, I think we left off at right at the action step.
Right.
I mentioned the rose and the butterfly. And
so any questions at this point before we move into the next step?
No questions.
It's all crisp and clear?
Relative. As crisp
Awesome.
and clear as I can be.
Fabulous. All right. Well, then, we've looked at this idea of choosing truth, facing and processing out all disease energies, the generational patterns, willing to go through the symptoms, got the goal, and the goal, remind me, was?
What line is the goal on?
3.
If it be 3B, or, oh yes, the goal is I want to feel wellness and joy in my body so that I can walk and be comfortable in my body.
Okay. And then tapping into love. Do you feel like that's a space you're connected with at this point?
Yes, we worked on that. Yes, I am feeling tapped into love.
Well, we join you and hold the space. Okay, then the next step is the core of the forgiveness process. And basically what step 5A is designed to do is to, if we were doing the live Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, this step is a review of every key principle that we've covered in the whole first half of the workshop. And so 5A, when upset, my perception is built out of corrupt data. How do I tell it's corrupt data? There's hostility or fear in it. And it's driven by my goal, whatever I asked for in number 3, start to feel good and joy in my body. That picture, that perception, that construct is a limiting picture constructed from a max of 9 bits of data out of 10,000 brain cells firing. So reminding us that this picture is something generated by my mind out of brain cells firing. And now the core in the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag or shabak. And it doesn't mean I let you off the hook. The word actually means to cancel, to let loose, or to untie. Now, if I cancel you, not a very good idea. Murder, cancel myself, suicide. No, we're going to let that one go. What is it in any given situation that I can cancel that's deeply involved in my pained perception? I can cancel the goal that I hold. So by canceling my goal, my replicant mind, and basically when we're talking about carbon-based memory, we're talking about the mind's ability. All it can do is replicate. There's where the why is this happening to me again experience exists. Lots of people do all kinds of intellectual work and all kinds of intellectual thinking and all kinds of stuff within their perception except change the root of it. So if you never change the root of what's in what we call the mind, all it can do is replicate what's in it. And so there's the key to, or the core of, the why is this happening to me again experience. So when I cancel that goal, that construct driven by the goal collapses, and that gives me direct contact with denied and dissociated parts of my carbon-based memory, which does nothing but project and blame others for its content. A good visualization here, it's not a pleasant topic, but it's a powerful visual that just about everybody has, is pretty much everybody remembers watching the 9/11 towers go down. And here are these giant structures that collapse into their own footprint. And that's a good visual for what happens when I cancel a goal. My perceptual construct, the reality in my mind, may be a giant construct. I've been doing this one forever. I've been pained and traumatized by this. It's run my whole life. It's giant. It's huge. And all it is a projection from the content of the mind. How do I collapse it? I cancel a goal. So when that happens, I get to touch into what's at the root. So if you visualize that perception as the tower, it drops into its own footprint, and that's what gives me access to the underlying content, which is for most people, it's always about, somebody else. I keep generating pictures of why are they doing this to me again. So the action step is, while holding love conscious, active, and present, I now choose to collapse my mind's lies by willingly canceling my goal, the driver, for number 1C, the object of attention of the worksheet, 2, and you put your goal in here. So what you do is you transfer your answer exactly as you had it in number 3, bring it down to number 5 and put it in that blank, and then cancel that goal. Does it make sense to you? Because this is the toughest piece of the whole thing. It's like, gee, Michael, I have a perfectly good goal here. Why would I cancel that goal? I mean, shouldn't everybody have the goal to feel good in their body and feel joy? Absolutely, I agree. That's a very fine goal for everybody in the world to have. And I'm not going to suggest you cancel it because there's a problem with the goal. I'm going to suggest you cancel it because when you load it in your mind, it brings corrupt data into your perception. And that's where the problem lies. So I cancel the goal not because I don't want it, not because I don't have it, but because whenever I load it in my mind, it brings corrupt data into my perception. Does that make sense?
How come? Up to that it's corrupt data. Like, how come it's corrupt data? The goal?
No, the goal isn't corrupt data, but the goal accesses corrupt data. Remember when we talked about hostility and fear, the primary meaning of hostility or fear, the ego mind's got all kinds of meanings for hostility or fear. You hurt me, you did this to me, that happened, this is wrong, that's wrong, I'm hostile because, I'm fearful because, I'm afraid because. So we give it all kinds of meanings, but all those meanings are a lie. All that hostility or fear mean in the human system is that the mind is using corrupt data to produce its constructs. That's what hostility and fear mean.
So my corrupt data thought is I'm in pain.
Well,
is that right?
No, your corrupt data thought isn't that you're in pain. Your corrupt data is that there's pain moving in you when you hold this goal.
Okay.
And so the fact that there's some form of hostility or fear within it means that there's the underlying energy that's being accessed by this goal holds corrupt data. And what I want to do, and it doesn't mean like when I'm finished this process, I will very likely go back and reestablish my goal to have joy and pleasure in my body, to feel good, to feel healthy, to feel well. That's perfectly wonderful. But if I start thinking about that again and I'm back in trauma and pain, then I might cancel that goal again, and I might do it again and again and again and again until I've finally processed through all of the underlying energy that, maybe goes back 20 generations in my bloodline and has been corrupted for 20 generations. When you hear this thing in the Aramaic, when they talk about the sins of the fathers, and remembering that the Aramaic definition of the word sin is an archery term. When you fire at the target and miss the bullseye, the scorekeeper yells sin. So, the sins of the fathers, the energies that are off the mark, are passed yea unto 3 and 4 generations, that scriptural quote says, and then it finishes with, yea of those who hate me. So here's the Creator telling us, not that we're going to get punished, but here's how your system works. You've inherited generations and generations and generations, as all of us have, of corrupt data. And that last, to me, the really key part of that quote from the scriptures, yea of those who hate me. Here's the Creator talking directly to us as humans. And in Aramaic, the word that's been translated there by the Greeks is hate. Is not hate as in a love-hate relationship. It's those who are separated from me. If I'm separated from the active presence of love, I'm incapable of transmuting, changing, or healing the corrupt data in me. I'm stuck with it. That's why before I go into this process, I want to restore my connection to love, to honor love, and be right there connected to love as I drop into this next level of my healing process. Because it's when that underlying corrupt data comes forward in the presence of love that it begins to dissolve. Only those who are separated from the active presence of love are stuck in the why is this happening to me again experience. When I make a new habit, or I reinforce the habit of staying connected to love, when my corrupt data comes up, I'm in a healing process. If I stay connected to hostility and fear, and my corrupt data comes up, I'm reinforcing and playing out the hostility and fear game again. And that means that instead of having love as my advisor, what I've got is the generational corrupt data. So, the sins of the father are passed, yea, into 3 and 4 generations of those who hate me. So instead of, or separated from love, instead of having love as the advisor, the assistant, the helper, what I have is the corrupt data of the generations. And when you start thinking about that, 4 generations, if you go back, you take your life and you take 4 generations before you, that's a total of 31 lives. And what that means on a physics, on a physiological level, is that you and I have every thought, every feeling, every reality generated from each of the previous 4 generations of our bloodline. I mean, did anybody ever tell us that we had every unresolved energy of both of our parents and our grandparents and their parents before them? That's 31 lives. And then, of course, you start thinking about, well, let's see, 4 generations back, where did they get their thoughts, their feelings, their realities? But from the previous 4. Who got them from the previous 4? Who got them from? Who got them from? Who got them from? We're carrying around, if you go back just 30 generations, we're talking about over 1.6 billion lives in our genes. And of course, if you go to the 31st generation, you're now talking about 3.2 billion. The 32nd generation is 6.4 billion. I mean, it's a mathematical progression that, what are we carrying around? And the real work of Yeshua is the invitation, develop the ability and the willingness to collapse pained perception into its own footprint, stand in a space of willingness to bring whatever that is forward in the presence of love for healing. And then, instead of having the generational patterns as my guide, I have the actual live presence of active love as my guide. Changes everything. The habit for most of us, however, if, a lot of our lives are consumed in hostility or fear, the habit is, well, I've got this great hostility and fear advisor, and he tells me that if I just rage at you, you'll change, and then everything in my life will be okay. Which, of course, doesn't matter how much the people around me change. If I don't change what's in here, I'm going to tend to keep doing the same stuff over and over and over again. Does that fit? That makes sense?
Yes, that's wonderful. It's fascinating, amazing. I love that. And that's like, is that why they say that's in your genes, right? Like,
exactly. It's literally stored in your genetics.
Yeah.
My mother had arthritis, and the energy patterns that contributed to her having arthritis, if she has never resolved them, and I don't resolve them, reside within my genes. Now the genes themselves can't activate themselves. A gene, let's say a cancer gene or an arthritis gene, can't activate itself. It can't say, oh, I think I'll damn this person with arthritis or whatever. It can't do that. Something has to activate genes. They are not self-acting. In medicine, they used to talk about, and this conversation's been definitely put to bed, they used to talk about the primacy of the DNA. That the DNA, the genes ran the game. Now that's passé. Everybody knows that's total fraud. Yes, the potential is there for it, but some kind of behavior, some kind of thought, some kind of word, some kind of action has to happen to resonate that into activity. If I do the action that resonates that arthritis gene, cancel the thought into activity, and love is present in me, then the arthritis gene is going to dissolve, and it's going to disappear from my bloodline. I'm going to free not only myself, but my whole bloodline from it. I'm going to open the energy window for everybody in my bloodline who's tied to that to be freed from it. And not only that, I'm going to open the energy window for every person on the planet who's tied into that frequency in their genes, in their lives, that creates arthritis. I'm going to open the energy window so that if they're ready to go through it. Now, I can't force somebody to go through the energy window, but, imagine we've got, you may have had a few of these over the years. Most of us have. We got this heavy sliding glass door, and it's sticky, and it's like, oh, it's so hard to open. My son had one of those. First time we went to his house. And we did a little work on it. We adjusted the rollers on it. We lubricated it. And, he did that, and then I was able to open the door more easily. Anybody that goes through that door can open it more easily. Once there's a great principle in the Course in Miracles that says, when you are healed, you are never healed alone. We're literally, everything that we face, especially the traumatic energies that we face and stay connected to love with, begins to dissolution us. Now, begins when they said to Yeshua, well, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? Actually, in Aramaic, you never heard Yeshua telling anybody to forgive anybody, and you never heard that disciple saying, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? There are two words missing in the Greek translations whenever the appearance seems to be about forgiving someone. So in Aramaic, that question, I think it was Peter that asked it, how many times should I forgive as to my brother? Was the question in Aramaic, not how many times should I forgive my brother. In other words, how many times do I have to go inside of me, collapse my perception, and remove my content that this particular brother happens to bring up for me? Yeshua says, or in the scriptures they say, you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother. Now, that's not a bleeding heart statement. Oh, you must forgive from your heart, some kind of, the heart is a code word for the unconscious. What he's saying there is you've got to remove from your unconscious that which you put into your brain's image of your brother. And so this is how it was taught in Aramaic to do that. So if I'm going along and I do a particular behavior and it brings up rage in my brother and my brother rages at me and I respond to his rage with my rage, that may be the very thing that brings arthritis into tissue. That may be the dis-ease energy. What I want to do is short-circuit that whole process by recognizing that I have a goal for my raging brother. Gee, I want him to speak to me lovingly, gently, and respectfully. What's forgiveness look like if I'm going to forgive as to my brother who's raging? It looks like me saying, I cancel my need for my brother to treat me lovingly, gently, and with respect. And I'm going to breathe. And I'm going to hold love present in my mind. And I'm going to look at that, perhaps that dis-ease gene that holds arthritis. I'm going to allow that corrupt data that would otherwise physiologically expresses arthritis in a space of active love, and guess what's going to happen? It's going to be transmuted, and arthritis is going to tend to disappear. That's what it meant, forgive as to your brother. So when Peter asked, how many times do I need to forgive? Is 7 enough? Yeshua said, no, forgive as to your brother 77 times 70 times, which means I'm going to do as many worksheets as I need to until I'm finished with this aberrant energy that's inside of me. It may not be 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 or 500 worksheets. It might be the 501st worksheet that I do, and since I've been doing quote unquote the right things nutritionally, emotionally, taking care of myself, resting, and that sort of thing, it might not be until that 501st worksheet that I'm vital enough to pull the real core energy that goes back 20 generations that's been causing arthritis or expressing as arthritis for the last 20 generations, which is in millions of lives in my bloodline. It might not be till that 501st worksheet that I'm able to process that one out. But now that I've done it, arthritis or whatever disease is related to whatever that energy is, it's going to disappear from my body and my mind and my emotions and my relationships and my finances. Whatever the disease energy, however, wherever it's expressing. The next step once we do the canceling of the goal is you invite this feminine elemental force that Yeshua taught about that was called Rukha. You invite her into activity. And here's the definition of that feminine elemental force is she who undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. The Greeks called it or titled it the Holy Spirit. There's nothing about a disembodied spirit being. There's an actual power in us that has the ability to reach back through all of the generations within our genes, all of the impact of all of those generations and all of the millions, perhaps billions of people that it's touched, and process that energy in an instant if I change my choice about it. But I've got free will, and if I decide, well, I need this little bit of rage just to protect me in case, my spouse gets nasty with me, then it doesn't matter how many times I invite that feminine elemental force to go to work and remove that rage. I've got free will, and as long as there's a part of me that values that more than it does the active presence of love, that's going to stay right there in my tissue structure and create all the effects it has created in generations and generations and generations. You look at that story about the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years, and we're led to believe that that's a story about this very bright group of people who know all about astronomy being lost in about a 35 square mile area for 40 years. People who know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. They didn't say, well, we seem to be lost, but we're going to do a straight line and follow the sun and get out of this. No, they didn't do that. They just stayed lost in 35 square mile area for 40 years. I mean, that's silly. It's ridiculous. But when you realize that the word desert there is a code word for the unconscious, and you start looking around, you notice that the average person hangs out in unconsciousness, the desert, for about 40 years before they start suspecting, I've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people, and I'm the only one that was there every time. Maybe I'm involved in my life. And they start to wake up and decide to go in and do their work. So this is the prescription. This is the how-to that Yeshua gave for going in and taking care of the heart, removing from your unconscious, from your heart, the wrongs of your brother, and thereby getting out of the desert. And if you read that story about the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years, you remember that the key to getting out of the desert into what was called the Promised Land, and that's the difference between the two is pretty simple. In the desert, we create unconsciously. We do the same stuff over and over and over. Why is this happening to me again? Why are they doing this to me again? Why am I doing this to myself again? And then there's the Promised Land, the land of conscious co-creation, where I engage in the creative process and I consciously produce the result. What had to happen to get out of the desert into the Promised Land? They said the old generation had to die off. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the causes held from all of the generations that have never been resolved have to be resolved in me in order for me to get out of the unconscious state, out of the corrupt data state, into conscious co-creation where I'm designed to live. And this is a prescribed tool for doing it, would be my offering.
How did they get out of the desert?
You got to do your work. You got to clean up your unconscious.
No, I know.
Again,
I know, but how
the
did
desert
the Jews,
isn't about a hot, sandy place.
Of the desert? I know. It's the unconsciousness.
Doing
does
their work.
The story say how they got out? Okay.
They had to clean up the generational patterns, and some of them never got out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Moses was one that didn't get out.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for the journey of doing one's own inner work. We come into the world, and what do mom and dad neighbors, friends, siblings, what do they all do with the child? Oh, look here, look here, look here. Look at this shining star over here. Look at this shiny atom over here. Look what this person's doing. Oh, look at the TV. Oh, look at the book. Oh, look at the pictures. Look, look, look. Look out there. What we need to be doing is guiding our children inside, because that's where the real life happens and that's where the work is done. And one of the things we do with our granddaughter, who's now getting ready to turn 5 next month, is we have meditation time, and she'll lead us in the meditation. And the meditation's about going inside. At 5, she leads Jeanie and I. She'll direct us step by step by step what to do to go inside. Now, we do lots of outside stuff with her too, but we spend time going inside and paying attention to the inner world and the inner life and the inner energies. And that's what this tool is designed to do, to help people to get into that inner state where the real exploration has to occur in order for us to get free of the generational patterns. The old generation has to go. Doesn't go if we live in the, if we're card-carrying members of one world religion of blame, and it's all everybody else's fault, of course, that I'm feeling this. Which is kind of the sad story of the world.
Can I add something?
Please do, Jeanie. Absolutely.
So one of the things that I always teach when I'm working with someone on the worksheet is, we're creators. It says that we're created in the image of God. We are creators. And so if there is something that you want, why have you not created it? It's because there is a part of you somewhere that believes you can't have it, you don't deserve it, or something along those lines. You don't believe that the goal is possible. Well, when you look at the story of Israel wandering in the desert, what happened was the generation of unbelievers, the ones that believed it couldn't happen, there was no way, they were told that it was the land of milk and honey, the promised land, and it was awesome, and they didn't believe it. Instead, they chose to believe that there were giants that they couldn't conquer and that there would be, all this turmoil and trauma, and so they didn't get to go over. But then there was a group that did believe, and they could see the possibilities and the potential, and they got to go into the promised land. So it's the same with us. If we hold a goal, and we're, if you look at the worksheet, first you have to cancel the goal, and then you ask Rukha to help you. It's not the other way around, because if you're not willing to let it go, Rukha's not going to take it. You have free will. And so you have to be a believer and be willing to let it go and believe that something better is coming your way. And then you can step into the promised land. But as long as you hang on to the, I can't have it, it won't work for me, I'm not worthy or whatever, then you're going to continue in the same desert.
Perfect. Awesome input, sweetie.
Yeah.
And Jeanie just reminded me, excuse me, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just agreeing with you that was awesome. Thank you, Jeanie.
With all of this in mind, there's a movie that we often show at intensives, and with the conversation we're having right now, it might be interesting, especially with the question you asked, to watch the movie The 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston. If you haven't seen that movie, or if you haven't seen it for a long time, in the context of this conversation, sit and just be with the process of that movie. And it's interesting that, here are all these people, a bunch of them are real whiners and complainers, and here they are, they're running away from Pharaoh, and there's a sea, and there's nowhere for them to go, they're trapped. And, they've been whining, complaining to Moses, and they're trapped, and they're going to be destroyed and captured and put back into captivity by Pharaoh. Moses opens the sea. This is a metaphor for healing. So Moses opens the sea, and everybody's like, wow, you saved us. How cool is this? And, of course, they haven't done their work. But the sea opens up, and they escape. And then the sea closes down and, Pharaoh's wiped out. And they capture it so beautifully in the Ten Commandments. And then the whiners start whining at Moses again. They just go right back to their whining game. It's a great, the way they captured in the movie is really powerful because they're just like, bingo, they're right back in the same old whine. They've been so, oh, wow, Moses, you're so great, you saved us. And then, oh, why didn't you do this for me? Why haven't you taken care of it? They go back to the same old, their card-carrying members, the one world religion of blame, and it's all Moses' fault. It's a great scene. It's a very poignant scene when you think of it from the context of people who have always got somebody else to blame and giving up that blame game, taking responsibility, and maybe, being the early adopter, the first person in their bloodline that's ever stopped and said, I think I'll go inside and clean up what's happening inside of me. Most people in today's world don't have a model of a mother or a father, grandmother, grandfather, aunts, uncles, cousins, sisters, brothers, neighbors for doing that. They're like the first one that says, I'm going to do this. And it takes commitment and it takes work, and it isn't over overnight. Most people are like, when they hear me teaching this, they're like, oh, Michael, that's so exciting. That's so cool. I got $5 in 5 minutes. Tell me everything you know. It's like, no, you don't get it in $5 for 5 minutes, or $10 or 10,000 or 100,000 or a million or 10 million. You get it by doing your inner work, and it's not going to be over overnight. It's not a Dr. Feelgood process. It means there are a lot of old generational energies to be embraced and worked through, and it's not a Dr. Feelgood process. That's why we have right up there in step number 2, I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. It's a big deal. It's quite a, when you start handling those generational patterns, it can get pretty intense. And people will oftentimes, over the years, I've seen people who, their first intensive they came to, and they had this big piece of work to do, and they worked on that issue, and they got, layers of it cleared out, and they're so delighted, and wow, this is great, and before they clear it out, they're in tears and pain and trauma, and oh my God, this is the end of my life, and they're delighted, and then they turn around, and the next week, the next month, 6 months later, that issue's back again. And 6 months later, it's back again. And 5 years later, it's back again. And look, I thought I was going to be done with this, and here I am. I'm right back in that thing that I was working on 5 years ago. And I'll remind them, because there's a marker that tells you that you're moving forward, and that is, well, remember 5 years ago when we did the worksheet on that? And your voice was so shaky you could hardly speak, and your body was shaking, you were trembling. The rage, the fear, the pain was so enormous you couldn't even think outside of that trauma. And notice that today, now, here you are doing the exact same worksheet 5 years later. But did you notice that as you start, and you proclaim, look, I'm not getting any worse, I'm going to quit? Did you notice that while you're doing that, you could crack a joke and you could crack a smile and your body wasn't trembling? You're doing another layer of your work. That's just part of the process. It isn't a one-shot deal and it's over with. It's something that you're going to get to revisit many times before you're completely finished with it. But if you notice the level of upset the first time you did it, most people, if I said, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what was your level of upset when you did your first worksheet on this? Oh, it was a 200. So here you are today, 5 years, 10 years later, doing the same worksheet. What's your level of upset? No, I'm at a 3. Now, the ego mind will say, see, it's the same thing, same upset, same issue. I'm not getting anywhere, because the ego can't tell the difference between a 200 and a 3. But that's a monumental amount of progress. Just what it takes. That's how it's done. It isn't bing, bang, and I'm finished with it. It's a process. So then the action step at this point, here's where in step 5A you take a step forward. I want to remind myself that I'm going to hold love conscious, active, and present. I now choose to collapse my mind's lies by willingly canceling the goal, the driver for number 1C, the object of attention to, in this case, my body, to bring me into joy and well-being. Does it make sense for you as to why you'd cancel that goal?
No. I mean, not consciously right now. I mean, it is everything you just told me. Why you cancel it? Now I'm like, oh no.
Well, it's a big piece of information, but in its simplest form. Again, I don't cancel the goal because I don't want the goal to be achieved. I cancel the goal because I recognize when I load it into my mind uses corrupt data to build my reality. And I want to clean up my corrupt data, and I want to clean up my corrupted realities. Again, you may finish this worksheet and go right back and reestablish that goal. That's perfectly fine. And if when you load it in your mind, there's more pain to be processed, then that'll be the next time you let go of it. As Yeshua said, how many times do I need to forgive as to my brother? Is 7 enough? No, 77 times 70. So I'm stepping into a process where I'm willing to embrace and process whatever's gone on in my generations, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, who have been in physiological pain and trauma. I'm going to embrace all of that energy, and I'm going to clean it up in me.
Yeah.
So you're canceling it not because you can't have it, not because you don't want it, but because you recognize that when you put it into your mind, it leads you into deeper pain. When you cancel it, your constructs around that pain will tend to collapse in on themselves, like the 9/11 towers on themselves, and give you access to the underlying energetic pattern that needs to be exposed and healed by touching into love or being touched by love. Does that make sense of it?
Yeah.
Cool.
This work is so powerful. I'm doing the intensive, and I have watched. Oh, can you hear me?
You're loud and clear. You're good.
Oh, okay. Because I was muting myself because of the background noise. But anyway, so I've watched, like the first 3 videos multiple times. Right? It's like I just can't. I just keep watching the same ones over and over and over, and then I'll start a new one, and then go back to the first one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it just sounds new, and every time. So it's But I think
just
it's
watched that.
creating those patterns.
You're building brain cells. You're building brain cells. So you go back and you listen to Yeshua. He says his work is only for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. I think we can fairly safely assume that pretty much everybody in his audience had what we call physical eyes and ears. So he wasn't talking about that. He was saying you got to have the brain cells. If I don't have the brain cells to recognize that it's my energy that's creating my pain and trauma, then my brain can't generate a picture that goes, hey, Michael, you're creating your own your own pain and trauma. You better clean up your mind. I have no brain cells to generate that. So what happens each time you watch one of those videos in the intensive, and you've only got about 90 hours to go through, so have fun with it. Each time you watch it, you're building brain cells, and your mind can build a bigger, more accurate picture of what's being said. And then, having watched it again, you've built some new brain cells on top of that, and you can get still a bigger, more accurate picture. And then the next time you watch it, you'll get still a bigger until you get to, oh, okay, that's what it means. I'll just offer that. I still go back and watch some of my videos from 30 or 40 years ago, and when I do, it's like, oh my God, did I understand that back then? I didn't even know I knew that. And now I know that I know it. When I watch it, it's like I recognized that I didn't have the brain cells to really recognize what I was saying back then. And now with 30 years in between and the brain cell I built, it's like, oh man, it's a whole new picture and a whole new understanding now. And that's the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's bring your answer from number 3.
Okay.
It's a process, yes. And one of the things I suggest to people is keep a record of your worksheets. Make a notebook, keep your worksheets. Because when you go back a year, 2, 5, 10 years from now, and you look at that worksheet, it'll have a whole new set of gifts for you. So if you bring your answer from number 3. Oh, please, Jeanie, go for it. That last one was great.
I just happened to think about this, and it may not apply. But so, Julia, your goal was to have a healthy body, or what was it?
Yes, I want to feel wellness and joy in my body. Yes.
Okay. So if you don't have that, then there's something underneath that's keeping you from having it. When you cancel it, and I may be jumping ahead here, you might see something like issues of your parents or grandparents who embedded the thought, oh, as you get older, your body falls apart. And if you bought into that, then, that would be what's keeping you from having a healthy body, because you believe what they told you or what they experienced, that as you got older, you didn't have a healthy, joyful body. And so then when you can see that and let that belief go, then you can go back and set the goal again, and then you might have a healthy body.
Yes.
Yeah, like what's happening to me is exactly like what's happened already to my mother, right? So I am following in my mother's footsteps to the T.
You say you were?
No, I am following.
You say you were following in your mother's footsteps?
I was.
Oh, yes, but you're not anymore, right?
No more.
Going to change that game.
Yes.
Yeah, and it might be, here's a nice tool that Dr. Tim brings in on occasion. And it addresses, Jeanie just gave us one example of how mind energy may have been implanted. But another one might be, the actual or the implied message that gets picked up by a child might be, we're just one of those families that are meant to suffer. We're one of those. We've always been in poverty, we'll always be in poverty, and we've always been in pain, and those kinds of dynamics get structured into the mind. And one of the tools to counteract that Dr. Tim came up with that he offers, which I think is really cool, is he has families, especially with children, look at their name, their last name, and make up an acronym for the name. So it might be, if the last name is Jones, then would make up something of an acronym for the name Jones or Smith or whatever, and it would be an acronym like, our family always has wondrous, joyful relationships and abundant experiences. If they were the initials that would go along with the acronym, so they make up an acronym for their name, so that the thought is implanted, consciously, purposely implanted for abundance, aliveness, and well-being, rather than the good old family feeling of, we always end up in trauma and poverty, or, whatever the pattern is. Because most families have a pattern of some kind, and they only have a pattern because that's what the generational thoughts are. And so taking the last name and turning it into an acronym is a great tool.
Yeah, that is.
So let's bring your answer from number 3 down to that blank in number 5.
Okay.
While holding love conscious, active, and present, and now choose to collapse my mind's lies by willingly canceling my goal for number 1C2. So how about going ahead and just doing that step? And you notice the little hand points to the word breathe over there. You want to make sure you breathe while you're doing it.
Okay. And I invite. There's a blank right after I invite.
Right. So as you canceled that, where did your mind go?
Okay,
did anything for you as you breathed? And it's a space when you're doing a worksheet that you want to get quiet and really listen to the subtler energies inside. So what happened when you canceled that goal?
I feel lightness in my body.
Okay, cool. Good.
Yeah, I feel
so then you
relaxed.
probably stepped into some processing. Awesome.
And yeah. And
And
then when
there's
I said
another
I
step
see a blank. Okay, go ahead.
Right. Well, before you move on to 5B, there's another step there, and that is one of the things that happens when we have an insight and we process through it. The mind is kind of a habit machine. And we may get an insight, but if we don't really, tell the mind this is what we're doing, the mind can kind of slip back into its old habits. So then you'll see over on the side, or there's that step that says, I cancel I need to be right and make up another story out of these brain cells to hallucinate proof that my fear or hostility-based story, my reality, is true. So the mind can, if it's got a habit that's been going on for a long time, you want to put an end to that habit, and this step is about, once you cancel your goal, it's about putting an end to that habit. I'm going to pay attention to my mind, and if it comes up with another story that follows this pattern, I'm going to say, no, we're not going there. I'm finished with that one. Cancel the goal again. And so just to be aware, the mind, being a habit machine, may just go back and do more of the same, and you're just going to let that loose. You're going to let that go.
Okay.
And then I'm going to invite, and you'll see that the definition of what it is that we're inviting in Aramaic is Rukha de Kudsha. And if you look down at the bottom of the worksheet, you'll see there's a definition. These are the words that were translated by the Greeks as the Holy Spirit, but it's got nothing to do with a disembodied spirit being. It is, quote, literally in Aramaic defined as a feminine elemental force that when invited into activity undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. I mean, literally can reach back through all generations, through all interactions, through millions, billions of lives, and the lives that I've impacted today and the life that I'm living today, and can undo all of those effects like that. Because that's the power of the active presence of that quality of love. So I'm inviting that power. Now, we leave a blank there. I usually just short form that to Rukha. Some people, they've got a strong religious bent, so their key in for that is the Holy Spirit. Some people have been traveling the 12-step path, and it's the higher power. Some people have been doing psychology, and it's the superconscious or the unconscious or the primordial X, whatever term fits. But now I'm going to invite whatever my term is for that power. And there's several things I'm going to ask for. I've canceled my goal. Now I'm going to be asked to be inclined toward healing. I'm going to ask that power to restore me to my newborn essence love, which you'll see a hand points to the right, Rukha. Rukha is a condition in the frontal lobes of the brain that is a filter that is also a gateway that opens a space for love to enter our forms. So I'm asking that power to be restored, to get back to my newborn essence love. Several things I'm asking for here. I'm asking that power to heal my denial. My pretense that something outside of me is the cause of what's happening inside of me. I'm asking that power to literally heal my capacity to generate whatever the emotion is I have in number 1B. Like, I'm willing to let go of even being able to generate that kind of energy within me. And then a second sentence in that request phase is, I'm asking that power, help me to open a direct conscious relationship with and gently remove these denied, dissociated, and projected parts of my carbon-based memory. So you're asking that power for several things. Cancel the goal, opens a space, collapses perception, and then you follow up and ask for support in those arenas. So how about doing that step?
Okay.
When you're doing the worksheets on your own, you can do it silently or out loud. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I've done that.
Okay. And so as you do that, number 6A, I now feel, and then there's a space to draw your feelings. Again, sometimes the feelings will be pre-verbal. They might go and fit into words, and they might not. So you verbalize if there are words for them, and or just a line drawing, just a simple line drawing can be effective. And so how do you feel?
I feel light.
Okay, so see what you fill in 6A. And then if you look back at the whole story in number 1, I can see that. How does that all look to you now?
It looks, it doesn't look frightening and overwhelming. It looks clear, and it looks, I think I'm just more feeling it than seeing anything in my mind about it.
Right.
It feels light. It feels lighter.
You've reduced it in size to the point where you know you can handle it. It's going to take some work, but you can handle it. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
That it
Okay.
has reduced.
Cool.
And I see
keep your breath moving with that.
I see a path to freedom and healing.
Yay. That's awesome. Nice work. Now, in this case, where you're doing a worksheet on your own physiological, oh, nice breath. That's the kind that releases. That's Rukha Dakucha in action right there, that breath, when it comes spontaneously like that. That's where the deepest processing work happens. Awesome.
I just feel so much love and joy. You know how when you, like, tears of joy.
So this is your human life coming into your physiology. That's what will heal you. It's your human life coming into full awareness and physiology. And it's not some kind of intellectual process. It's like, wow, this is what's happening in my form, in my structure. The next step, 6C, would not be applicable here in the same way that it would if I was doing a worksheet on someone else, doing it on my own form. So that one wouldn't particularly be applicable here. But then move to step 7.
6C. Okay.
Okay.
That's good. I don't see 6C. I just see 6A and B and draw your emotions, and then 7A.
Okay. Well, let's go to 7A. I'm looking then at a slightly different worksheet than the one you've got. So 7,
okay.
A principle of the universe is that by giving, I first get the original. So when recognizing, and of course this would be particularly applicable if I'm raging on someone or criticizing someone or what have you, I get the original of the energy that I'm giving. My pain and sadness about what's going on in my body, I'm just reinforcing that original. And so this is just a recognition that whatever I offer to someone else, I'm giving to my own physiology first. And then I'm grateful. I'm going to step into gratitude for this opportunity to heal. It's like, wow, this is awesome. And then I'm going to make some new choices. I choose I choose truth rather than blame. I choose perfect love. And then, based on the whole issue that you're working on from love, structure a goal toward whoever you're doing this worksheet on, which is your own body. So what are you going to offer to your own body?
Wow.
So it might look like something like, okay, the next time I'm feeling trauma in my body, I'm going to soften and breathe, and I'm just going to step back into this connected space of love and hold that space for myself. And then as you do that, soften and breathe. And then the final step, because the show's about to cut us off, if you look in the box, you'll see I commit to love, to living a human life. To help achieve this, I do a mass canceling of all the times I wanted, number 3, from someone. So looking at, and this might not be quite as applicable again when you're doing a worksheet on your own physiology, but if I were doing a worksheet on someone else, oftentimes the goal that I hold for them is something that started out long ago. You know, I've had that goal for many people throughout my life, and so now that I've got the ball of release happening, I want to cancel every time, put the initials of anybody I've ever had that goal. Oh, gee, I remember when I had that goal for my mom. Yeah, I had that for my big sister. I had that for that first guy that I dated or that first gal that I dated. Oh, yeah, I had that for my boss. And I'm going to cancel all the times I've ever wanted that goal from anyone. And that just moves the whole process to another level.
Right.
And you've just done a worksheet. Nice work. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was courageous. That was courageous. Well, thank you for the gift. This will be a special show in our archives with what you just did. That's a nice piece of work. Really nice demonstration of the principles. So sweet.
Yeah, today was so powerful, and I'm so grateful. And I'm going to listen to this over and over, and I'm going to share it.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, young lady. Well, the show's going to cut us off any second. So I'm just going to say much appreciation, everybody. Create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world and blessings. Thank you.